Okay, it's time for the best books of the year. Hello, my name is Gemma and welcome back to another video. If you missed my Best Book Awards earlier this week, then basically those are a plethora of books that I wanted to highlight. That some of them feature in this top 10, some of them do not, but it gives me more scope to highlight books for their strengths. This is just a straight up, what did I like the best? This isn't about which books are the best written, which books have the most literary merit. We're not dealing with none of that stuff. Just what books were most enjoyable to read. Which books did I actually go away and think that had an impact on me? And I have 10 of them. I had more than 10 5-star reads this year, so it was really hard to whittle them down, and you will probably see as we go through that there are some notable books that I have been raving about that are missing from this list, and it was just because I had a really great reading year and there were so many good books. It was hard. It was hard to come up with a final list. But it is here. This is all fiction, not non-fiction. I don't feel like I've read enough non-fiction to do a solo list for that, but it does feature in my Best Book Awards video, so again I revert you back to that if you missed it. So we're going to go from 10th to 1st, and as I said, 10th place on this list is not a bad thing. I read 146 books last year, so this is like the cream of the crop, so all of these books I highly recommend. In at 10th place we have a book that was robbed of a spot on the Booker Prize shortlist, and that is Nightcrawling by Layla Motley. This book follows a young girl as she is growing up in a poor area in America. She is black, her mother and father are no longer on the scene, her older brother is sort of not being very responsible, and so all of the household finances fall into her lap, and she turns to a career that you would not wish on your child. And this was just brilliantly written. For people who like Jesmond Ward, I would highly recommend. Also for people who enjoyed Careless by Kirsty Capes, I think this is a fantastic book and really deserved more praise when the book along list was announced. I thought it was fantastic. In at number 9, we're on a theme, another book that was robbed of the Booker Prize shortlist, Maps of Our Spectacular Bodies by Maddie Mortimer. This was a real hard-hitting book. This follows a woman who has been diagnosed with cancer, and the prognosis is bad, and we know that from the start, and we see her and her body reacting to this situation. And we also get perspectives from her daughter and her husband, and we look back at her life, and it was gut-wrenching and so innovatively written, with sections of her body talking to us and the cancer talking to us. And yeah, I just thought it was outstanding. I don't think I've ever read a book quite like it. Highly recommend. In at number 8, we have a book that I read very early on in the year, and it also hit my mid-year best of books, and that is Detransition Baby by Tori Peters. This book follows a cast of 3 main characters, a trans woman, a detransitioned man, and a straight cis woman, and their interactions with each other when the straight cis woman falls pregnant. This really opened my eyes to some of the challenges that trans women face, the unfairness of a lot of it, the things they feel they have to do to fit in to societal norms. And yeah, I just thought it was brilliantly written, and it certainly shone a spotlight on a lot of trans issues that I was less aware of, and I really want to read more on the subject following that book. So that definitely deserved a spot on my list. Next up, one that I'm very surprised about, and I think was maybe even my first or very early on book of the year, and that is Anne of Green Gables by Ellen Montgomery. Everyone tells you that this is like a brilliant classic children's book, but they also say that about The Secret Garden, which I thought was dull as dishwater. So I went into this with pretty low expectations and ended up adoring it. It made me cry, it made me laugh, and Anne Shirley is just a fantastic, fantastic character. In fact, the whole cast of characters are fantastic, and I was blown away, really. Ellen Montgomery, genius. In sixth position, we have a sci-fi novel, and that is by one of my new favourite authors, Becky Chambers, with A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. This follows quite a raft of characters of all different species, sexualities, identities, and I just adored getting to learn more about each of these characters as they travel to a small angry planet. And I just loved all of their interactions, and it was really cosy, and there were some ideas in there that I have never come across in sci-fi, and yeah, adored it. I have gushed about this pretty much every month since I read it, so hopefully you've got the gist, but if not, I loved it. In at fifth position, we have a translated piece of fiction, and that is Magma by Thora Hjulifsdottir, which is translated from the Icelandic by Meg Matic. This one was really hard-hitting as well. It's probably a theme. If you've been here for a while, you know basically if it makes me cry or makes me want to curl up in a ball and ignore the world forever, then that's my sort of book. And this one deals with emotional abuse, and I felt that it was a very, very realistic take on that. The character's actions aren't perfect. This isn't a fairy tale. This is her life, and she has fallen into this relationship that she cannot get out of. It's told in short vignettes. For me, I think it painted the picture of how easy it is to fall into an emotionally abusive relationship, and I think that is something that needs to be talked about more, particularly in fiction. And yeah, I just think everyone should read it. Then we have another work of translated fiction, and that is S by Slavenka Drkulic, which is translated from the Croatian by Marko Ivic, and this deals with the Balkan War. For those that are unfamiliar, this is the Bosnian War, where the various countries that made up Bosnia were warring, and is about the effect on just a standard person within that war, a young woman who gets taken to a camp of sorts, and her experiences within that, and it was horrific to read, absolutely horrific. But the reason it ranks so highly on this list is because I think it really highlights the desperation of war, the impact on the average person. I think this woman was just a teacher in a little village, and her whole life fell apart. And yeah, I won't say any more. It's quite a small book. If you are queasy, if you're triggered by pretty much anything, then I wouldn't pick this book up. But I do think it's an important read, looking at the brutality of war. In at third position, we have The Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead. Oh, always the bridesmaid and never the bride. This book was shortlisted for both the Booker and the Women's Prize last year, and it didn't win either, which I think was a travesty, because this book is fabulous, following Marion Graves as she decides that she wants to become a female pilot in the 1920s, and her journey to get there, her experience in World War II, and then her final sort of attempt at circumnavigating the world from pole to pole. And that is really a very brief synopsis of this book, because it is quite a long one. It's like 600 odd pages, I think, and it really just is an exploration of what it is to be female in that time, sibling dynamics, friendship dynamics, the power of ambition, the setbacks of ambition, and yeah, I adored it. I thought it was so good, and I'm gutted that it didn't win either prize. In at number 2, with my co-presenter Rudy, we have The Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver. I have done a solo review for this. I've done a solo review for a few of these, so am I boring you? So I will link those below. But The Poisonwood Bible, again, an epic family saga. This one is set in the Congo when the father of 4 daughters decides to move his whole family there to become a minister to the Congolese people in a small village. And we see this from the perspective of the 4 daughters, and they are also beautifully unique. And like I say, I've done a whole review where I rave about this book, so I'll leave that below, but it was amazing and I cannot wait to read some more Barbara Kingsolver on the back of that. And in a top spot, nothing has knocked it from the top of this list since mid-year, and you probably all know which book I'm talking about, and that is Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. If you'd have told me in January that my favourite book of the year was going to be a Western, I'd have been like, don't be ridiculous. My favourite book of the year is a Western. And this follows a group of cowboys, but particularly 2 sort of cattle owners who move a herd of cattle from the Mexican border up into the north. I can't remember where they moved them to now. But it's just this epic journey with this amazing cast of characters, some that you love, some that you hate. You just become so invested in everyone's story, and it is just a really special book. It is long at over 900 pages, but Larry McMurtry is a master of making every single page count. So if you don't read any other books from this list, please read Lonesome Dove, because it was phenomenal. And so that is it. That is my top 10 for the year. I would love to know if you have read any of these, and also what your top books of the year were. And I will catch you all very soon with another one. And if you missed my book awards video, I will leave that here, and I will catch you all very soon with another one. Bye guys. You prat.